Hello, everyone. Welcome to Things That Go Bump in the Night. I'm Robert Rumbaugh, and I just want to introduce you to this to our new channel on YouTube. A quick update on how things are, why this video is going out the way it is. It's called Things That Go Bump in the Middle of the Night as a Christian perspective. I want to talk about a Christian perspective or a biblical perspective on the paranormal. There's nothing wrong with the paranormal. I remember when I was in Bible college, my thesis was the demonologist, the exorcist, and the role of the church. And I was very interested in it. And as when you realize that as a Christian, and our perspective from biblically is that we are all three roles at once, where the secular world has a tendency to divide the exorcist and the demonologist apart, and they act as individual roles, but in reality, from a perspective, a biblical perspective, it is we're all one. And so I just want to talk about the way things are happening. For one, we're, as a Christian, we all know that our people are perished because of lack of knowledge. And I'm not saying that the paranormal is not real. Understand that I'm saying the paranormal is real and we interact with it every day, especially if we're a Christian, we should be living a supernatural lifestyle. But there are certain things that are going on in the supernatural realm that aren't necessarily biblical. And so that's a side that we want to talk about, and coming at it from a perspective as a Christian perspective. So when you understand that, it's like, am I opposed to, say, people that are there to help somebody? The people that are in the paranormal investigations, I believe that most of them have a pure heart and a pure motive, that they generally want to help somebody, or they want to get that done. And they're only going based upon what they know and what they understand in their understanding, maybe trained from somebody else, what they picked up, the different equipment that they used. And there's nothing wrong with that. Their motive is right. But it's the same way with a Christian. Our motive is a motive out of love, is actually to help somebody. But in actuality, as a Christian, there's certain things that the Lord tells us that we cannot engage in. So I want to just talk about, at times, what are the things that are going on in the supernatural realm? Are they real? Are they not real? Are they demonic, or are they spiritually inspired by God? And you know, when I wrote my thesis that was called the Demonologist, the Exorcist, and the Role of the Church, I remember bringing it from a story in which I'd read, in which a lady walked into a house that was full of paranormal activity. It was demonically infested, and she was having things that was happening in her house, wrappings in the walls, the kids were being pinched or slapped, sheets being pulled off the covers, being totally intimidated by the realm of darkness, and to the point where it was stressing them out. And so the lady, being a Christian, went to the church. And when she went to the church to talk to the pastor, well, as normal, the pastor was just very kind of suspicious and didn't believe anything that was going on. Wouldn't believe the lady, and said, well, you have to bring proof before the so-called church would get intervened. Now, it wasn't the Catholic Church. It was a different denomination of church, mainline, but a different denomination church. So she went out and she did what she thought she had to do. And she hired an actual team that was a paranormal investigators. And the paranormal investigators came into her house, documented everything that was going on, because they generally wanted to help the lady. So they documented the wrappings, they documented the noises, they documented what the anguish that the children were going through, and all of that stuff. So when she actually had all the evidence, she walked in and she presented that evidence to the pastor, and he sat there and watched the evidence, where they had audio that was reliable, they had video that was going on, they had the sworn testimonies of all these people, and this team that was paranormal investigators that spent all their time going through what was happening. And the conclusion that the pastor had, and it's sad to say, is he said, well, there's just some things that we can't do. Now, that is a total blanket pardon my expression, an unbiblical statement. But the lady was so dejected when she left because she thought, well, there ain't nothing I can do. And in fact, she ended up having to move out of her house. And then she started a house for people that were going through the same thing she was going through. Now, she didn't know how to help them, but she had a loving personality where she just wanted the people to come in a place where people would believe what was going on, and she could be around. They could be around somebody that didn't look at them like they were crazy, but understood what they were going on. And when I read that story, that was the basis, and a lot of them where all of a sudden I came up with the studying was the demonologist, the exorcist, and the role of the church, and define all three roles. But in reality, all three roles are one when you're a Christian. So it was very sad to have that. So that's the one thing I want to go on and talk about. So this just laying down a real quick update on why I feel that we have to have this channel that's going on. And I hope that you all listen to it. Click like, subscribe, leave a comment. But, you know, the thing is, I just want to cover topics and talk about stories and stuff so that we get a perspective, because there's a lot of people out there that have experienced the supernatural on the realm when it came to paranormal activity, but they don't have no place to go. And I want to close out with this real quick. I had a friend, and he understood where I was working at, and I would tell him things that I was involved in and what was going on. And he said that he was listening on a scanner over the local station here in Cleveland, Tennessee. That's where we're at. And he was listening to this radio station. It was actually a scanner where the police were talking back and forth. Some people do that as a hobby, and that's what his hobby was. He liked to sit around and just listen to what was going on the scanner. So while he was listening to what was going on the scanner, he told me, he said, I heard a conversation that was going on, and he said, it reminded me of you. He said, I wish I would have got in contact with you. I said, well, really, what was it all about? And he said they were having on the scanner, said the lady that came over there to the police officer, the dispatcher, and said, listen, this guy wants you to come by his house because he's got drawers that are opening and closing and slamming on their own, wrappings in the walls, and he thinks somebody's in his house, and he's hearing scratches and everything else like that. And he's got in the midst of all of that, another officer came over and said, tell the guy he doesn't need the police, he needs a priest to come out there to visit him. So that's just kind of a little thing that we want to go. So well, let's just talk about those different things. Hey, it was good to see it. Just a quick introduction. I wanted to get it out there, let you know who I am. And I hope that you do like and subscribe or just put a comment down, because we're going to cover over some of the things, not only my life experiences, but also on others. Hey, you all be blessed, and I'll talk to you all later. God, take it easy. Bye.